Good morning traders, it is Samurai Trader here for our recap on the FESX 1000 volume futures European market. Another great day of trading, fantastic day, and we're going to be going through some of the regular setups, but a couple of important things I'd like to quickly run through with you before we get underway with the actual trades from last night. Is successful trading is a game of probabilities. You are going to have losses, but you know that with our setups we have 12 key setups. There are 3 or 4 that are just absolutely brilliant. You know, if you have a stop out of two or three, you know you're going to have a great run. It's a game of probabilities because our setups are really all about recognizing patterns. The market has a memory and patterns repeat themselves day in, day out. Nothing can add more power to your life than concentrating all your energies on a limited set of targets or a limited set of setups. Start with the T1, focus on the T1, and you will become a master trader, as you're about to see in last night's trading. So let's have a look at, we opened up and the market gap right up and we bounced off the pivot, and we can see here, and as you know, where we have that gap up like that, we call that a T89. We've moved right away from the moving average. I did not trade that one. A lot of our traders don't, because what we like to generally do is see where the market's going to go. You never really know when it first opens. Some of our traders had a huge night last night on the T89s, and they traded this. So, and just to recap, let's assume you did trade it. Your entry wouldn't have been here until after we had the magenta. Our zero lag rolls over and turns magenta. That's when we then short the market for 4 to 5 ticks. Here we can see we've got our long-term, our 89 EMA moving up, and the arrows here just represent pivot bounces. So we've got our long-term moving average is an uptrend. We're bouncing off a pivot, so these are really good signals. The only thing is here we've still got a falling long-term stochastic, and we had a T10 set up. However, just where the market is, a lot of traders still, we sat aside and we just were waiting. Even though you had a T1 signal with the trend here, you did not take that trade because the zero lag hadn't turned cyan, so it hadn't turned up or changed color. So you had no real, yes, you had a couple of trading opportunities there, but higher risk. Give me low risk every day. So now we've got a beautiful T1 bounce. It's off the 89, so it's an 89 bounce, as well as it's a bounce off a pivot level, which is just a fantastic signal. Your entry was in on this candle here, and that delivered 4 points. You had another one back here that was good for 3 to 4 points, and then we had another one over here. Now what about this one, you may ask, because that bounced also off the pivot and off the cyan, off the pivot, sorry, but we've still got a magenta downtrend. We're waiting for it to turn cyan, which happened here, and in you went. Up the top here we had what I call a borderline 89 T89 trade, a bounce off the pivot that was very tradable also, and away we fall. Now one little trick I'd like to show you is that this is something that I've discovered is great for initiating or letting you know that you have a definite change in trend. And you can see here we've got a special adjusted 8 EMA, and it's offset into the future, and it's what we call our trigger line. So notice our trigger line here crossed there with the zero lag. It also crossed there. These are excellent signals that we have a change in trend. So I'll just remove it now so we don't confuse things of what's going on the chart at the moment, but we've got some excellent strategies that we train you in on how to recognize a change in the trend. So let's now move along here, have a look at some of these other trades. We had another perfect T89 set up down here, and your entry was not until this candle. As much as you had the paint bar plot, the super scalper, that almost was a pivot bounce as well. Your entry was not until this candle. Why? Because you're waiting for your zero lag to change color, to roll back up. You also had divergence on the platinum this stage. Up you go. You've got another T89 setup, a beautiful T89 setup here. Your entry was not until over here. You also had a double top, a falling platinum, and you had a lovely entry here. Over here you had another entry for a T1 with the trend. Notice we've bounced off the 89. Up we go again for a good 3 ticks, and remember, on the 1000 volume you're after 3 to 4 ticks unless you're trading a good T89, where I target for 5 ticks on a good T89. Why? Because you've sprung the snapshot, the slingshot I should say. You're so far away from the 89 that is going to be my target there and a little beyond. So over here we've got a triple top, all right, a T7 triple top, bang, thank you very much. We've got another T89 down here. It's also a pivot bounce. Notice how we've collapsed down and we've sprung back up for another T89. Here we've got nice angulation away. Your entry was on this candle, the opening of this candle here, and that was great for 5 ticks. Then you had another with trend, T1 with the trend. Why with the trend? Well, we've still got a rising 89 EMA, so it's still rising, and that was great for 3 to 4 ticks as well. Let me just scroll along here. Now notice how we're getting some pivot bounces here against, so we've got resistance here, but we've got a rising 89 EMA, and notice how there's really no space there. You don't take those. And remembering also, they're a counter trend trade. Getting back to thinking in probabilities, your highest probability trading is going to be trading with the trend. Master of a T1. Here's a T1 here. Your entry was not till there until you turned cyan here. T1, T1 over here, another T1 signal. Master your T1s. You're going to have them day in, day out. That's where you get a pullback. So you're buying the dip, you're buying the dip, you're buying the dip. Up here we had a lovely T89, which is a counter trend trade, but what it is, you've basically got a balloon away. You've got angulation away from our channel, you've got a bubble forming away from 89, and you spring back down, and once again great for 5 ticks. Your T89, if you trade them correctly, that is where your entry you want outside the channel. They're a very high probability trade. Up here now, why is this not a T89? It's because your entry, your entry would have been here if our zero lag had rolled over and turned magenta, which it doesn't do over till over here. So notice here that your magenta, it's still cyan, we've still got a rising zero lag, and then we get a lovely little double top along with a falling platinum. So it's a great trade to the short side. Now what I also have happening over here is a T11 trade. Now a T11 is where I have a lower high, and that's signaled by a counter trend T1 signal, and you can see that's falling very, very nicely. Now that, as my traders know, and our institutional traders, that's one of the key trade setups actually. So there they would have been in for that trade. That was very, very good for 4 ticks. Up here, what have we got here? Now here we've got a pivot bounce. You can see the pivot, we've got a T1 signal, and it's also an 89 bounce. But what is missing off this trade? What's missing is our zero lag has not rolled over, and it hasn't turned cyan yet. So what we're looking for here, we can see here that it's still magenta, it's in a downtrend. So even though you get a signal for an 89 bounce and a pivot bounce, you would not have entered until this secondary signal down here. You can see you had another T1, you're bouncing off the 89, and I just love these 89 bounces, and you'll see them all night, every night. So traders, that gives you an overview of our trading opportunities that we have for last night. The European market, it's 10 euros per point. It has fantastic volume. I think last night there was around 1.5 million contracts traded. Remember that successful trading is a game of probabilities. Become a master at one setup. Become a master at one pattern, because the market has a memory and the patterns repeat themselves day in, day out. This is Samurai Trader. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel, and I look forward to you watching the next recap, which I'm about to do, which is for the NQ, the Nasdaq 133 tick from today's trading. Thank you.